5 days with 5 videos, 5 minutes each of 5 theories about Lower Moon 5, all presented to you by Rui's #1 fan, me. Hello there, my fandom friends! Today I am going to be talking about the theory of why Rui is Muzan's favorite demon and why Muzan saw himself in Rui. Jumping into Muzan's backstory a bit, we see that Muzan was a sick person. He could barely get out of bed, he could barely move, etc. We don't know the exact details of it, but from what we know, that's what we saw. The same thing, it goes for Rui. He was very bedridden most of the time. He claims that he could barely walk. He had never run. It was hard for him to breathe. We see him coughing a lot. There's a lot of things that go hand in hand and are similar between the two of them in this kind of sickness that they both were born with. So for Muzan to show up at Rui's home when he was a human, it makes sense for Muzan to think that he was saving Rui as a human by turning him into a demon, because as a demon, all of that is healed. All of that is forgotten, it's in the past, and Rui can move on as a being that is no longer sick, just like Muzan. But what I can blame is Muzan for manipulating him that way. But the reason why is because I think he saw a lot of Rui in himself revolving around this whole sickness. So a lot of people say, well, Rui made that decision to become a demon. It was ultimately his decision to kind of turn into this bad guy. And I always tell him, yes, of course. But you have to think, if you can't go about your normal day life, you know, walking around, breathing, he's so small, frail, fragile, what decision does that leave you with? Literally dying or being healed? And for a child, I feel like that's a very easy response. And again, Rui was probably not told all that has to come with being a demon, that he'd have to, you know, eat humans and carry on through life serving this higher being that's manipulating and controlling him, because of course Rui doesn't know any of that that's going on behind the scenes. I think a lot of Muzan's initial obsession with Rui and how closely they were related due to this whole sickness that was going on between the two of them, I think that's the major reason why Muzan saw a lot of himself in Rui and why Rui ended up being Muzan's favorite demon. I have a couple points of evidence that I want to talk about. So number one being that Muzan literally slaughtered the rest of the lower moons when Rui passed away, except for Enmu, of course, because he kind of decided to show more of his worth in those last couple moments. But all of the other lower moons, Muzan wiped out because of how frustrated, and by him taking out all of his anger on all the lower moons when Rui passed. And I think a lot of that has to do with Muzan's anger at himself, not really the lower moons. They had nothing to do with it. Not even Rui. Muzan gives Rui a lot of power compared to other demons. He lets things slide. He gives Rui special permission, as told by one of the sister spiders in episode 20. The context of that whole situation was the sister spider was explaining to the other sister spider that Rui had special permission from Muzan to have this spider family, meaning he probably did not let other demons do that. He did not let other demons split their power like that. Of course, Daki and Gyutaro are a little bit different because they were kind of a matched set with them being siblings. We saw the way that Muzan treated Kyogai. Kyogai is secluded in this mansion. He wasn't, you know, killing enough humans according to Muzan, so he took his lower moon powers away. Rui was kind of in that same situation. He kind of chooses to seclude himself on that mountain, and Muzan just lets him. Muzan lets him have this family. Muzan lets him split his power, even though Muzan knows that it's making Rui weaker. All in all, Muzan really just kind of favors Rui to the point where he lets him do his own thing, which kind of ended up being Rui's downfall in the end, his weakness of being killed by Giyu. And I think that by giving Rui all of that freedom over the, 20-plus-ish years that he was a demon, Muzan started to realize, oh my gosh, if I hadn't given him that leeway, maybe Rui would have still been alive. It's also stated by one of the spider siblings that Rui was a favorite. She also states that Rui frequently has to descend the mountain to go meet up with Muzan. Now, of course, Muzan is always checking in with the 12 Kizuki, but mainly from what we've seen with like Akaza and the lower moon meeting and the upper moon meeting, he's always berating them. We saw how he treated Akaza. We see his displeasure with all of the upper moons. He beheaded Gyoko. Annoyed with Doma, he talks about how he hates Daki. We don't exactly get to see the interaction of Rui and Muzan when Rui descends the mountain like his sister Spider explains he does, but from what I gather, I figure that they meet so that Muzan can give Rui more of his blood to make him more powerful, so that by splitting all of his power amongst these fake family members, he's not getting weak in return. Because again, Muzan favors Rui. All in all, I find their interaction to be super interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of symbolism and meaning behind it of this higher being controlling and manipulating a child, as sad as that is. If you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts, I would love to hear from you in the comments. I hope you're enjoying my 5 theories in these videos, and I will see you next time. Bye!